Into the camera now?
Yes.
Okay.
So we are live now. Yeah. Good morning, everyone who has joined in for the webinar today, and even those who will be watching this recording later. So, welcome to the third webinar this year in our series Creativity and Essential Catalyst for Education. For those of you who are here for the first time, a warm welcome from the community of teachers and parents at Shishya. We are a Waldorf school based in Navi Mumbai and have been on a mission to create awareness about holistic nurturing of children, both at school and home, based on the principles of anthroposophy and Waldorf education. Today's conversation, as you might know, is centered around children from 0 to 7 years of age, which means birth to 7 years of age. And we are honored to have two eminent speakers with us who are specialists in child development and nurturing. So we have Dr. Karti Yaini, a child development consultant who works with children with developmental difficulties and special needs at the Spark Institute in Chennai, backed by qualifications in pediatrics and developmental neurology. She has a career spanning multiple decades as a medical professional. In addition, she has completed her training as a yoga teacher from Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram and is also a visiting faculty for anatomy and physiology at at Mandiram. She has also worked as the wellness head at Columbia Specific Communities, caring for senior citizens for over 5 years. Her special interest and faith lies in the exploration of movement as a tool for healing, which one can tell from the fact that she is continuously relearning and training herself in different movement led healing modalities like Tai Chi, eurythmy, Botma gymnastics, and spatial dynamics. A hearty welcome, Dr. Karthi. Our privilege to have you this morning. Our second panelist is
Thank you.
Reena Dhilla. Welcome. Our second panelist is Reena Dhilla, co-founder of Shishya Waldorf School, with over 2 decades of teaching experience. At Shishya, she is the mentor and the principal teacher for the preschool section, which has really deepened her understanding of children from 3 to 7 years of age. With a bachelor's in arts and master's in education, having been the vice principal of an international school offering the CIE program, and having taught children across the primary and secondary schools, she has seen many a children unfold themselves. Her quest for a wholesome education led her to Waldorf training sessions, and since then she has intensively trained in several programs across India and Europe. She's also trained in biodynamic farming, another discipline of anthroposophy, a poet, a writer, a singer, and an eternal optimist about creating a beautiful world for children. Welcome, Reena, ma'am.
Thank you.
It's an absolute delight to have you with us adults and not having children around you. So, so here I am opening today's conversation with a quote from Rudolf Steiner, our inspiration and sustenance for this work. So he says, receive the children in reverence, educate them in love, and send them back and send them forth in freedom. I'll say this again. Receive the children in reverence, educate them in love, and send them forth in freedom. That well paves the path for this powerful conversation on children right at the beginning of their journey. So we'll open with Dr. Karthi. So, Dr. Karthik, given your vast experience across age groups, because I see that you've worked even with armed forces, with senior citizens, and a large part of your work has been with young children. What are the gaps you see today in the nurturing of young children, which can lead to issues in learning and health, both in physical and mental spectrums, in the years to come? If you can define a few things for us, open to you.
Thank you, Ritu. Thank you, Reena, for having given me the opportunity. to be a part of this webinar. Before I start, I would like to bring a verse written by Rolf Steiner, as already have opened up. This is something which is relevant to my talk, so I thought I'll bring this over. In olden times, there lived in the souls of initiates powerfully the thought that by nature every person is ill, and education was seen as a healing process, which gave the child, as he matured, the health to be a true human being. This verse really stays with me whenever I see, and because as a child and grown in the Indian system of education, I have suffered through, to say that what I have suffered through, healing is happening for me through working with children right now. So, as your relevant question and the discussion is, where are the gaps which we see in the present day when it comes to nurturing the children? And of course, different, as they grow to be an adult, the same thing carried over as a ripple effect into the adulthood also. So I want to bring a little bit into the child development before we start, as what happens in the first 7 years. Let's focus on to the first 7 years, which is a very crucial time in the development of childhood. So first, we all are given a model body from our parents, ancestors, right? So this is a physical body. As a baby, the baby comes into this body and try to make this body of its own by growing into the limbs, growing into the every part of the body, feeling to understand what is my body. So mastering this body is what's happening in the first few years. To say, rephrase it, this inherited body, what we get from the parents, is transformed to my need for this life through this first 7 years. So the transformation happens from the inherited substance to be who I am at 7 years. Very crucial time, 7 years of time. So the first 7 years, if you see the developmental process, how the child is moving through development process, and the early childhood illnesses are helping the child to transform this body. So as an educator, our aim should be, we should guide the child into an environment wherein the illnesses and its consequences should prove, it should help the child in the development. So that's the most important part as an educator. The first 3 years, yeah, the first 3 years is, there is a little bit of noise, I suppose. Okay. So I would say
Sorry.
the critical periods. Is it okay? So
Yes,
the
it's
first three
fine now.
years is, yeah, I would take this 7 years period into even further three categories. As the first 2.5 years, which is the brain development happens for the child. So the maximum capacity of the brain in the form and structure to an adult size, almost 80% of the adult size is achieved during this time, where there are millions of connections are established between each brain cell. So the first 2.5 is a very critical period for the brain development and the opening up of the connections, to say. So this is also very important. And the next 2.5 years is the time when the child is basically breathing and the circulation is established, by which it's learning to speak well, connecting sentences, and thereby it's communicating to its needs and how to connect with the world. All this is established between the 2.5 and the 5 years, the next 2 years. And the last 2 years will be like, how can I have a skillful woman, master my walk, and can do all independent chores myself, to be a complete, a physical, independent human being by 7 years. So this child, which is coming from a pre-birth environment, which is totally protected, well protected with embryonic sheaths, protected in the mother's womb, and coming out from from an extrasensory environment to a sense-filled environment, that is the world where it lands in at birth. So it needs utmost sensitivity to bring this child to meet and connect to the world. That onus is lying on us as parents, caregivers, and the teachers and the educators. So We see these days is the first 2.5 years, the child is supposed to get as many possibilities as to explore into the sensory world, move around, play, have free play, so that they can have the mastery of the first the 2.5 years, the brain development, synapses. So the limbs are guided by the nervous system. In return, the brain gets educated by the limbs. So it's a vicious education. It's a very close knit education happening for the child in the first 3 years, first 2.5 years. Jarring inputs of concepts coming at this age, at this point in time. It's like we start schooling these days. We say the preschool starts at 2 years, even 1.5 years. They start putting children into school. So this developmental process between the limbs guided by the brain, and the brain getting educated is a very, so that so many synapses are formed for the future development, future access for this child to move skillfully. It comes to it gets hampered if there is other things get. For example, the media, the nursery rhymes. They say the child should pick up cognitively so well so that exposed to the media too early, and so they can listen to the nursery rhymes, and then thereby they pick up vocabulary. So this is totally uh, uh, a shock into this process, which is happening between the limbs guided by this brain and the brain getting educated. So it's a process which gets impacted. The next 2 years, 2.5 years, is where the child is listening to the human interactions in the family. Some noise the child makes. Initially, before coming upright, they are very close to the floor and they are on the floor. So they connect with the footsteps of the mother, footsteps of the people, households to understand who's coming towards me. The moment they come away from the floor to sit up and to start getting up, there is a disconnect from these connections of the vibrations where they felt. It gives them a little bit of fear, out of which the sounds come from the child to reconnect with the world. So uprightness brings the sounds as a connection so that it can look from this place where it is standing and to the mama or papa, and it makes some sounds to connect. These sounds are picked up by the environment, and the environment says, oh, this child is asking, this wants milk now. No, it's crying because of this. It's asking for this. So many interpretations for one sound of this child is done by the whole household as a human interaction. The child keenly observes all this and starts picking up vocabulary from this environment. What is good to take it, into the pocket, what is not good. So it has a vocabulary collection from 2 years, horizontal listening, very important stage for speech development, which is nowadays being hindered by not much of human interaction. Easy is to put the Cartoon Network. The child sits quietly and watches the media. There is no dialogue happening. So it's only an unknown language which has got a discord between what is spoken and what is heard. The lip movement is not in sync with what the child is hearing. So there is a conflict message always happening. To a point, the child comes to say that I rather look into this rather than listening. So the child loses the listening capacity completely. This happens after 2.5 years till the time when this is going in. The last 2.5 years, which is where the arch of the foot for the child is developed. The neuronal differentiation happens. What is my right? What is my dominant hand? Slowly, the child tries to get to know its limbs in its skillful activities. And the lower limbs start having the arch to develop, thereby they can do the jumping, they can do climbing up, and they can do all sorts of skillful movements, and they become very independent, not anymore dependent on the circumstances and the people to get something for themselves. Very confident in their movement. So this particular time, they need free play and exploration outdoor activities, not to be seated in front of the computers, and not to be seated in the households and to play, because COVID has really showed a different range of illnesses for children, because there's no possibility of taking the children out. So they were all constrained in the households, not much exposure. So a lot of speech and language disorders and a lot of children with posture difficulties, because they're not been integrated in the gravity sensors to move into different aspects of the earth. Particularly barefoot walking was missing these days. So you find children have difficulty even to sit upright, because the brain has not mapped completely how the body is traced, which comes as a part of the development. So I would say at every stage, we are seeing there are the loopholes and the gaps are there. If we are closely look into it and we see why the spectrum of children, lot of learning difficulties, lot of sensory integration disorder, a lot of children having a speech language disorder, it's all in the process of the development. So I would say that it's not a very not a situation to be hopeless. Lots can be done, and lots are already people are awake and doing. Like Reena has taken over certain like all lots of schools in pockets. The awareness has come for the need of the children. So the inclusiveness in the mainstream is where we can start. We say this is a special need child, but with one special need child can help many children who are in the below the iceberg, which is the tip of the iceberg, we are seeing as special needs. But below the iceberg, we have many children who are needy for this requirement.
So, would it be correct to say, Dr. Karti, that in the spectrum that we don't medically call special needs, there are a varying range of needs that are being unmet and becoming special, so to say, because the natural general needs are not being met. Is that a fair way
Absolutely.
to put that across?
Absolutely. I would even say it is overrated. Special needs are overdiagnosed at times. This may not be a special need. This may not be a learning difficulty. It's the way how the child missed certain milestone and coming to show us the difficulty in a different way. So we put them into a box as a special need. It's easy for us to say that this is it, and you do nothing much can be done, or this is only can be done, or this is the only way to be done. So, not respecting the individual need of the child. So, I would say it is
So the
overrated and
common,
overdiagnosed.
so it's the unmet common needs at some level.
Yep. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I have a
Absolutely.
specific question about what you said about speech and language development. So they need to have horizontal conversations for vocabulary to develop and speak through human interaction, right? So uh, I have seen peer parents who have this understanding that even from a device, so if they are not listening to a cartoon, but let's say humans on a device, let's say a TED Ed at that young age or something that is like there's a lot of content that is sold to parents as customized content for young children, and they feel that even that is conversation. They're picking up vocabulary from there, they're picking up information what they want, and parents say that no, the child is watching because they are inclined towards this subject. What do you have to say to that? How different is language learning from a passive device versus active human interaction?
Yeah, language development for a child as a pre-linguistic faculties, one of them is the gestures, human gestures and emotions. Right? If they have to speak, that's how they pick up the words. If this is not good to speak, they know, oh, whole environment is having a different, or some of them all falling over means, this I can use it as a trump card for what I need to do, drawing the attention. So a gesture of a human face and then the way how the emotions are travel is a very important phase for child in developing. So which is missing in any just the audios and in videos, just the opposite. They're listening to something where the lip movement are different from what they hear. They don't sync. So every aspect of the sound, the child tries hard to the brain is trying to. It was heard last time this way. Now the lip movement is this way, and wood is heard differently. So the constant conversation is happening in the comprehension process. Finally, it gives up to say, forget it. I can only approximately say what's happening. So the guessing starts coming in where there is no listening mode. I guess what the others say already before the conversation opens. So the many ways they move out of the listening skills if they have this input, visual input. As the listening input alone, like podcast stories, we say the storytelling sessions and podcasts, they say so many versions of it. But the human component of emotions is missing in these. And the gestures which they see is definitely a very important aspect for adding adding flavor to this language skills what they are learning.
Thank you, Dr. Karti, for elucidating that. So, Reena ma'am, moving over to you now. You've been nurturing children from 3 to 7 years of age. Is that correct to say for
Yes.
at the school level? for the last decade at Shishya, and also older children in your career before, and even at Shishya, you are teaching older children for specific subjects. Based on that experience, give us a view into what kind of nurturing makes young children ready to receive heavy duty academics as they grow up. Because in all my conversations with parents, I come across this question: oh, if they are refrained from structured learning young, if they are refrained from reading too young, or ABCD is not pushed their way at 3 and 4, they will miss the bus. They will not be ready for the world competitive and so fierce trying to knock them down, right? Because in all honesty, every parent wants to make their child more able for the world they have met than they were, right? So today we are sold this idea, given this idea that the younger we start academic learning, the better it is for the long term. So yeah, I wanted to therefore hear from you what kind of nurturing makes children ready to receive academic or any other form of cognitive learning in the later years. Over to you, Reena.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rituparna, for the question. So good morning, everyone. And before I answer this question, I just want to share that if any athlete if is actually preparing for marathon, so first thing that athlete would do before running, they first warm up. They prepare their body for marathon. So this preschool years, especially this 3 years to 7 years, that years actually are the time are years of warming up years where children they are, or we also call them as a formative years. So they are preparing their body for future learning. And if enough time is given, if the athlete takes enough time for warming up his body, he will have less problem when he will have the marathon. Similarly, in the education years, if you give children enough time for preparing themselves, first preparing the physical body, as Dr. Karti said, that first initial years, children they work on the physical body, the physical development also happening at the same time through their physical activities. Even the brain is getting developed, so lot of physical activity is to be given to the young children. And I'm not saying that overload them with physical activity. That is also not good. Balancing these physical activities in a rhythmic manner is most important. So for young children, when they play in outdoors, and when there's opportunity for them to walk on grass or climb trees, or touch and feel things around, because this is a time when all the senses are developing. So through senses they are learning everything. So it's like, the brain is learning how, like, okay, this leaf is smooth, this leaf is rough. So a lot of physical activities, if we can, where physical activities or outdoor, or children learn through movement. As we restrict their movement, it's going to affect their entire physical development, going to hamper their physical development. So allow them to move around, let them explore this world and through their senses, and take entire the world through their senses in. So this is a time where the child is inner is developing. So this everything from outside is going in, and this it is the best thing which can be given to the children, and which we as a I mean our generation people got as a wonderful gift, that our parents actually gave enough time where we would spend enough time into nature. There was a lot of freedom. We had our childhood. We would play outside more, and would come back home, and then start working on our homework and all those things. So if this can be given to children, because The most important thing which I feel as adult and as educator when I observe children, if more children are engaged in learning in any activity or observing nature or play, that that concentration or that skill later on is actually transferred in later years when child starts learning. So when the academics is introduced, so the skill, the first 7 years actually are we work on their skill building, and later these skills can be used for academics in later year. I remember one of our mentor gave teachers a wonderful image, that imagine children are like going to climb a mountain, and when they are climbing mountain and they have this backpack behind their back. So as a teachers, as a parents, and as a educators, we all need to do that, give teaching child a right skill which will help him to climb that mountain. That means put in his bag right skills which child can use that later on when the time is for him to perform, or when the child will have this academics. So so this is the so climbing a mountain is just like facing or going into the real world, and then these skills can be used. So definitely the skills first child will use for learning academics, and then later on the skills will be transferred or in will be used in the real world as well.
Thank you, Reena ma'am. Can you also give us a summary of how is an ideal childhood care? How does an ideal childhood care look like in your view, in terms of like what will help them prepare for the world or the academic learning later?
Yeah, so
Like
one
at
thing.
school as well as at home, what are the essential, how does the environment look like, or what can adult caregivers do to provide that environment?
Sure. So first thing in first 7 years, child need is rhythm, and that rhythm where child starting from morning when how child is waking up and also getting ready for school. In school there is beautiful rhythm of where child is playing outside and outdoors, and then learning, coming back to the classroom, learning songs, and then eating, and then involved in various lot of doing activities. And so, and then learning stories, going back home, sleep, and then in the evening allow child to be outside and outdoor again, and then feed child on time and put child to sleep on time. So I always feel, and even which the Dr. Rudolf Steiner also mentioned, that rhythm is strength, and children they feel very secure when there is rhythm. And when there's a secure environment then there is no anxiety in child. When there is no anxiety, the child will happy. And when the child is happy, the learning is in a very beautiful, cool, calm environment. And outside environment actually affect children. If we are able to take care of this environment through beautiful rhythms, then the child's inner breathing will be really calm. And as we all know that if there are a lot of situation which is a very difficult situation, and that time the first thing which affect in human beings is our breathing. But if we know that how we can really our breathing at that time is really calm, so then we can handle the situation very well. So in Waldorf School, where there's a beautiful rhythm, through rhythm we are working on their breathe in and breathe out. And so children, when there's a in the when they go out in real world, and where there's a situation, there's a complex situation at that time, children know their inner breathing and their inner calmness will help them to handle that situation very well. So what I want to suggest to the parents that have good rhythm for for children, sometimes some parents make rhythm too rigid, too strict. Having too rigid rhythm is also not good. Like even on for example, on Monday to Friday, they can have a very good rhythm which allow child to be really be active in the school, and so you can have the beautiful rhythm which I just mentioned. And on Saturdays and Sundays, you can have and we can go for a different rhythm where you can expose child to nature, go out in the farm, or maybe out in the nature where there are grass or open grounds. So when that Saturday Sunday rhythm can be different. But again, coming back on the weekdays, and then you have a beautiful rhythm. And if we can give this to our children, I'm sure they will be a better citizen in the future. They will be better able to handle the world in the future.
Thank you, ma'am, for explaining that. So, going over to Dr. Karti, I think we have moved in the conversation very beautifully to a point where um, I feel the need to understand the role of movement and outdoor play a little more in detail, also because you use movement as a healing modality. But even before we reach that stage where we think about healing as a separate exercise, how about movement integrated in the daily life of a young child? How frequent should that be? How should that look like in this world where parents have we live in nuclear families with minimal support? Adults can do their work only when children sit quietly, so to say. uh, how should we integrate their movement and play in the rhythm? Maybe how should, if you can give us a sense of how should home structures be like, which allows, because I have seen this personally, that living rooms that are very adult friendly are typically not child friendly, with sofas and glass center tables where we expect the child to sit down or else fear they will get hurt. So and a young child is constantly moving, cruising, crawling as they call, and then walking, running, jumping all over. So yeah, how does movement look like? And also, again, in the absence of time and bandwidth, most parents uh, take the park going or outdoor going exercise only once a week. Is that young enough for a 2 year old, 3 year old, 4 year old, 5 year old? That's my question to you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very difficult question and becomes more individualistic and personalized. I'll come to it, but overall, movement is very, very important for development, and movement educates the brain. Underline the statement. So, you want a child to perform well intellectually, cognitively, early childhood movement plays a very important role. So, having said that, now what happens in movement while the child is developing during the early years? We all come when we are as a small newborn baby, we have ingrained certain movements already as a primitive reflexes. So if the hand of a child is touched, immediately it closes the hand, it has to close the hand. This is a reflex pattern of movement, and it happens irrespective whoever touches the hand. There's people uses this as a say, the child likes me. No, the child will like everybody, the newborn baby. So this is for the survival. The children are given different, like if the mother's the breast strokes the child, automatically the child's face turns towards the breast. Nobody teaches a child how to reach out to the breast. So there are certain movement from the head to the foot given to the child for their survival when they are in the vulnerable stage. These are called primitive reflexes. And while growing through different explorations of the senses, through the senses and moving across, they are integrating these primitive reflexes into their purposeful movement. If I keep having this skill of palmar reflex, I can't reach out for an object. So I have to let go of this reflex, then only I can reach out for the object. Or I have to integrate this into my skill for reaching out for object. So some children choose to have this, like us children with special needs, children with difficulties, choose to retain these primitive reflexes because they're still not entering the world with confidence. They are a little bit hesitant into moving into the world. So these primitive reflexes, if it has to be integrated, movement is the only way. And senses are the invitation for the movement. All sensory world is inviting the child. It can't be too jarring senses so that the child goes, "Ah, I don't want it." So that it become hypersensitivity to certain senses, particularly sense of touch. So the sense of touch, if they are not mastered, children are very, very difficult in movement. Each sense serve the other. As Sarina was talking about, the early sensory exploration will help. So Steiner talks about the four lower senses is very important one: sense of touch, sense of movement, sense of balance, and sense of life, which is very important to serve these children. So in the background, if you see, if a child movement has to be facilitated, the child's learning is through imitation. All like we all know about it. So if a child has to imitate the environment, am I worthy enough for the imitation? Is what the environment has to depict. If I want my child to move, I should be moving. And if I have to move, I have to make the whole family in such a way, the rhythm is set. This time to this time we do this activity, this time to this time we do this activity, and there is a time for interacting as a family with the child. So all this comes one by one, provided I am convinced that movement is possible. Then till the time it is going to be a weekend park because I don't have time, I'm working, all these excuses come. But if I'm convinced this is writing a different destiny for my child, then I will make sure that somehow I'll make time for this moment to happen. And best would be for a child free exploration, free play. If there is a nature park, that's the best place for them to go and play in the evening every and they look at the other child and learn many things in the early years of growing. In the school, they have a different routine, and the same thing can be made. So weekdays could be a little movement from the households, but Saturday, Sunday, as Rina suggested, could be a natural rhythm out into nature rather than going to the malls, which is over sensory loading. So the children are loaded with senses and they may be looking happy, but they're totally exhausted when they come back. Not only the children, even the adults are exhausted when they come back from a shopping from the sensory mall. So we have to make sure that Saturday, Sundays are done. In any case, I would suggest that sleep rhythm not to be disturbed on weekends also, the food rhythms not to be disturbed on the weekend also. So they have to have a good sleeping time, good eating time, timely meals, irrespective of the routine change, because they have to go back to school with a good happiness and joy rather than overloaded and then go and vomit there on Monday. It becomes difficult for the school to hold the child on Monday, Tuesday. By the time they sink into the rhythm, it become already the midweek. Then again, the child is going into a weekend. So weekend rhythm and the weekday rhythm can differ, but certain things has to be fixed, like eating time, sleeping time. There's no change. So movement is very important. So to small things like if you have grandparents at home, and the child is 3 years plus, where the child is spending some quality time with the grandparents, you can bring traditional games at home, like Pallanguli, we call it as, and Dayam. Many things are there traditionally, so they can sit with the grandparents, play. Fine motor skills are developing by doing this, and movement in certain ways can be a kitchen activity. The family cooking can happen. That is also a movement can be brought about. Other than the child's own free play, these are the extra things which can come as part of the home program for the parents to make sure the child is also part of the household activities where it's moved by the environment. So all we need to do is convinced that yes, movement is very important for me and my child. So I being a yoga practitioner and I worked with children with special needs, and I work even with children who are 3 months and 6 months, children who have special needs. How do I work? I work with a mother. Work with the mother for yoga, pranayama, breathing, and that just hold the child in the arms and then do this. So that energy is automatically received, and the child is looking at the environment. Oh, my mother practices every day something, so can I also be part of it? It may not be yoga, but it is a movement for the child. So if the household starts doing this, it is an imitation for the child for a regular movement. Otherwise, any activity can be movement incorporated, made to be as a family home program.
That was a powerful lesson. So, when you said certain things should be kept consistent even in the varying rhythms, like food and sleep. Now, this is one subject parents today get a heavy download of information from around the world and around the internet, and this food DHA fortified and protein fortified, and children need this and that. I know this is a very vast and deep subject and cannot be covered very quickly, but if you can give us a sense of what is wholesome enough food on a daily basis, and also the requirement of sleep in 0 to 7 years in the different sections, like broadly, I know that young infants probably sleep 18 to 20 hours a day, and then how does it move from there until 7? How does it move? Dr. Karthik, can you hear me?
Um,
I
yeah,
think
I think there was disturbance. I could not get. Can you hear me?
yes, yes, yeah. I realized later that
Can you hear me?
yes, yes. Now I could hear you. Yeah, I think the internet was a little patchy. That's all right.
Yeah,
That's
could you
life.
please
So
repeat that, what you wanted me to speak on? Because I just
yes,
lost it completely there.
yes, yes. So I was talking about food and sleep, which you mentioned that should be consistent even in varying rhythms. Uh, what does a wholesome meal look like? Because food is one area where parents receive a lot of information around the world and internet on, like, food supplement fortified with certain supplements. I see your video getting patchy. Just stop me if you're not able to hear me. Yeah. So and also about sleep, how does it go, like how many hours of sleep, and what is the ideal duration of sleep? But this is again another area which gets, I would say, adapted or manipulated as per the adults' lives. So children often sleep late,
Yeah,
and yeah. So what is an ideal routine look like? I mean, just for understanding, we may not be able to do it every day, but like you said, that if we are certain that doing these things will help us write the destiny of the child, then what is a utopian sleep and meal schedule like? And
yeah.
meal, not
I
schedule,
would say
must
that,
be foods. Yeah.
yeah, am I audible now? Because there's a lot of disturbances going on and off. Am I audible clear? Okay. So food and sleep, what I meant is the timing when you give the children the food. And very important meal is the dinner meal. I always insist the dinner should come by 6 o'clock, which is a shock for most of the parents to say that why 6 o'clock? Why 6 o'clock? Because we have a sun's rhythm very clearly ingrained into our body as a part of a metabolic limb system. And liver is the one organ which is serving this. So if you serve the liver for a growing child till 7 years, you are helping the child to develop a good immunity, a good growth, good potential for growing, and less even in case of cognition. This is going on and off. I don't know, something is going wrong. Can I go off video? Can I go
Yeah,
off
or
video and
else,
speak?
yeah, or else maybe for now we can move to Reena, ma'am. We can come back and have you address this question a little later if the internet serves well at that time. Yeah, we just flow with the tide
Yeah,
for now.
no,
Is
just
that
the
okay?
2 points, which this is it's a big,
Sure.
no, it's a big subject. What I'm just trying to say is to serve the liver dinner by 6 o'clock. We can talk about the subject a long way. And next is sleep. The child has to have good quality sleep, REM sleep. We have both NREM and REM. The child, if it has to get a good potential for learning, to have a good REM, which comes between 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. The proportion of REM and NREM changes. So if the child has to have a deep sleep at 10 o'clock, when should have been to bed by 8 o'clock, 8:30. So by 8 o'clock, the latest, the child should have been to bed, and 6 o'clock dinner. This is a point blank statement I'm giving because it has its own goodness. We can have many reasons why we can't go. We have mainly the lifestyle illnesses of fatty liver because of late dinners. So even adults need to wake up to this, right? So there is no question of saying it is not possible, it is not conducive. Once in a while stepping out is okay, but get back at 6 o'clock. People have to eat at 6 and then sleep early to see what happens to them, and then they get convinced rather than getting to say that how difficult it is. My child 6 o'clock eating dinner, but again it feels hungry at night. and my child sleeping at 6 o'clock may get up at 2 o'clock. All this is out of habits. We have to bring this and be consistent over 2 3 weeks, and then we see what rhythm sets. So we can take this into a next session or later. Why should we have this sleep at a time and then? But there's a big topic. But my main thing is health wise, even not only for the children, for adult also, it's good to have early dinner. So early sleep, depending on the adult's professional requirement, I would say they can move on a little bit later, but the child's time should not be beyond 8 o'clock. The household should revolve around the child, not the child revolves around the household.
That's a powerful point, mate. I think that's where the reflection needs to begin. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Kapil,
Absolutely.
for making that point. Reena, ma'am, coming back to you. So we spoke about movement. We also briefly touched about upon food and sleep. While these are very deep, independent subjects, I understand that. I want you to talk a little bit about other things. So I know that in a Waldorf kindergarten, while we refrain from mainstream academic learning as we know it, but we do several other things, and children do develop beautifully through those things and in their capacities to think, create, um, and basically unfold their lives, right? Can you talk about those other aspects? We spoke about nature, but the other aspects of a world of kindergarten.
Sure. So, as Dr. Kati said, that it's from zero, from birth to seven, children are in imitation. So they are whatever they are learning from their people or adults around them. So first, we need to be really very careful how we are there in front of them, and so they learn through imitation, and so in Waldorf preschool, adults keep doing a lot of activities around them, and children they come to us and they want to learn, and then we just involve them in those activities. And basically, this 3 to 7 years, children they learn by doing. I always share this with parents and with people that these hands, children hands, are nothing but extension of the brain. Whatever the child's brain wants to learn, they want to, experience their touch and feel and understand through their hands. So there is a lot of activities which we do with children, and I want to emphasize that all these activities are meaningful activities, not activities just you just allow children to just do it. So as Dr. Karti said, the best thing which we can give to our children as for move to develop their movement, their fine motor skills, is allow them to be a part of the kitchen or cooking, or so there are a lot of cooking activities, and when child does this cooking activity, all their senses are involved. So they're actually we are working on the sense integration in the lower years. So whether it's cooking, where it's handwork, I would like to emphasize more on handwork, because in world of schools, always outside world see children doing a lot of handwork, and they wonder what children are, why we are doing the, making them do this these handwork. So when we introduce handwork in preschool years, we always start with very soft clay, and we always give them uh, clay, which is pottery clay, which is very natural, not the clay which is are available outside. So which children can mold with their hands, and then later on we give them bee wax, which is even harder, and this can be this can be melted through your body warmth. So children they make a lot of things with bee wax, and from bee wax we move on to a lot of work with the thread. So what happens when children are doing handwork? So the first thing is that they are working on their fine motor skills. And when you're engaged in the handwork, at that time child is paying attention. I mean, like, he's focusing, his concentration, he's practicing that focus and attention. And also and also any handwork is connected with the creativity. So child is creating something which is beautiful piece. and then whichever handwork they are learning in world of preschool, they are using that in their day-to-day life. Like sometime when the children make certain things out of thread, and they go home and make rakhis, they go and or make garlands. So they are using that in the practical world. And in the later years, if you have these has skills, then just some children, those who are very good at handwork, and in the later years they can actually become do excel in their handwork, and then become more in the childhood they can sorry, in the later years in adulthood they can use that handwork, and they can become self-reliant or independent and responsible when in the later years. Also, when you do handwork, and that time when the handwork is complete, what we all feel here, we feel a sense of accomplishment, and sense of accomplishment actually give us that confidence. So through handwork, children are also working on their confidence. And also, there's in handwork there is rhythm. You have to follow the rhythm, and there is repetition. And when there is rhythm and repetition, always leads to cognitive development. So when they are, and so that's how they're working on the cognitive development. And also, when your handwork is done, and when you look at handwork, it feels very happy that I could complete. And during the handwork, people, they are when we are engaged, at that time we feel calm. We are the most important thing which happens, that we are during the handwork, we are connected with ourselves. That inner self is the most important thing. And later on, when you know how to connect to your inner self, in the later year, that will help in self reflection. And the most important thing which we all are lacking in, like most people are lacking today, that self reflection can be achieved through handwork, or now I will replace word instead of handwork, by doing any work. These things, you go inside you, that you can go into self reflection. And also, children, they develop simple empathy for artisans. When you know how to work, or on like handwork, then you start appreciating others work, you start appreciating art, you start appreciating artisans. And there's appreciation and also reverence for others. So now, through learning by doing, children definitely, which rhythm, which I have already mentioned, which is important part of world of curriculum, and also the repetition, and even the reverence, which something which the children learn through all things which are learning by doing.
That was quite a few nuggets of wisdom in a capsule. Uh, Coming back to you, Dr. Karti. Uh, so, can you elucidate a little more on what are the things that yes, you mentioned about Cartoon Network, etc., but any other aspects of modernity and current lifestyle that you clearly see deterring these processes, these vital processes that you earlier spoke about, which you feel we should become more cognizant about? So now, given your earlier brief, let's say we are now determined to take the child as the center of our universe. So what are the things we should begin reflecting upon? One, of
I
course,
would
you
say
mentioned household should have a movement routine, but other than that, yeah.
yeah, movement. Also, another thing which I wanted to tell about the movement is repetition, is what Reena says. There are studies, n number of studies. The neuroanatomists have stated that it takes about 400 repetitions for a brain cell to develop a synapse, which happens in the early years. Whereas through movement, we can have just to have 20 to 40 repetitions, the brain synapses open up. So that powerful it is. So movement should be part of the household, in any household, keeping the child as a center, and eating and sleeping in rhythm. That is, you should have the timely meals and timely go to sleep. And of course, media is one thing which they say that if if the grandparents also, some of the households, they're all given a new toy like the Facebook. They can connect with the telephone itself to different places. So everything, keep seeing that we should respect the elders who are staying with us and give them their time, because parents are working, grandparents to be taking care of the children. So you are expecting an elderly people who have done with their work of bringing up the child to take care of your child. You got to bring a little bit joy into their life by giving what are their interests, and how do you make that interest happen, not by just sending them away for a pilgrimage. That's not the only thing. Day to day, how are you taking care of their breathing out activities? Like how Reena said, breathing in and out. So the caregiver should be given the breathing in and out, so that they are always present in a very positive way for the child to be available. Because they're in a household where the mother and father not there, somebody else is taking care. How is the house, the caregiver being given the enough spaces and then enough health, so that they can take care of the child in a positive way? So this is one thing which I always insist: the grandparents should be given their time for themselves. It could be just the grandfather, could be just the grandmother, or both of them. How do you give their quality time for themselves to breathe out, and then bring them to connect with the child, and then to have a so rhythm in such a way that my time, my partner's the time with my partner, and the time, individual time of the parent with the child, and the time together as a family is to be nicely charted out as a calendar for the week, so that they can start putting in. Because working parents, even I'm working, my daughter is working, whoever present day working become a culture, like everybody has to work. So how in my work do I take this quality time? It's not about taking a time, this is my time to look after my daughter, but I'm also having the phone in my hand, and I'm seeing the messages and I'm talking to the child. That's not a quality time. This phone should be in your office room, in your household. You can designate a cupboard as an office room, or you can designate a room as an office room. Keep this gadgets inside, and mama papa works in the office room. No access for the child to see you working with the smartphone when you're spending a quality time with the child. So these are certain things which we can give. Actually, think over it, and also keep a media fast. Like how we have fasting time, Mondays this fast for Shiva, and Tuesday this fast. Keep a media fast time as a family, consciously, not okay, early morning I will not see the phone. That could be every day morning I will not touch, or Sunday no phone time, or eating time no phone. Likewise, there's some discipline you adults have to take in to say that the child doesn't imitate the environment of saying, if you're watching, why are you telling me not to watch? And automatically till 7 they won't ask, after 7 they will ask. 7 years after they said, are you walking the talk, they will ask. So till 7 years, okay, mama papa is saying I'm doing it, I'm imitating and I'm doing it, I will not ask any questions. Very good. Till 7, this till last year he was listening, and now the child is just doing opposite. Yeah, the child is now seeing you as who you are really, not that it was pretending to be the world. Yes. So all this small tips which parents have to pick it up, to say that how can I live in peace? Now I don't have to kill myself for this rhythm, but I have to make sure this rhythm is followed in a very beautiful way. So that is my main suggestion, so that we don't have to really worry about how do I maintain my rhythm, how this is and that. It can be very organically made, provided we have charted out for our timings independently. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Karthik. Reena, ma'am, a little more. I'm probing you into the visual aspects of the environment, like what is overstim. Like you said, sense integration happens. So, what is overstimulation? What is understimulation? Visual aspects of art and artistics. Because I've seen Waldorf kindergartens are very plain in some sense to the adult eye compared to the world we see outside, like white walls or baby pink backgrounds and so on. So, not just from the perspective of the kindergarten, also in terms of homes, now that it's a responsibility to raise a little human, how should homes be set up? Because we all do take care to set up the home when a baby is arriving, right? So, what should parents know about the visual aspects of the environment?
If I have to answer this question in one word, then I would say simple. Simple, keeping everything simple is the answer. So even at home, our environment should be such that there's nothing should be around which is over stimulus. Like if you are in a sitting in a room, one wall red, one wall yellow, another wall different color, as an adult we feel overwhelmed. So that is definitely is going to be overwhelmed for even for the young children. So starting from the walls, which are, it's nice when they're painted nice pastel colors, not very vibrant colors, because vibrant colors do affect our visuals, and even that would be, as I've said, that overstimulating for even children. Even environment at home is as far as possible kept natural natural things around. So even in world of classroom, if you enter, many a times many parents, they, when I take them to the world of classroom and I ask them how you feel when you are standing here, and the feedback which I've got from parents, that I feel that I'm able to breathe in. I'm feeling that I'm feeling warm, or I feel that I've been embraced in this in this environment. The beauty of world of education and the environment is that everything is simple here, where everything is into minimum. And as we I follow this one beautiful quote is, less is more, simple is always good. So the curtains are plain, there are no designs, there are pastel colors, there are wooden toys, open-ended toys, which actually help children to be more creative, because they are not just fixed toys, where there's a lot of imagination which children build in world of environment. So, and also even no cartoons or lot of characters around them, because children cannot relate themselves these cartoon characters. Sometimes I really wonder that how as an adult we can make them understand that what cartoons are in, because they cannot relate them to in their real life. So as and I think which I would like to add from my side, that if you go back to our past culture, it was simple and beautiful. So if we can revive that and we can have very simple homes, a simple environment for children, that will be helpful, because through that children can that overstimulus is that, as Dr. Karti said, that when we expose children to media too early, so that what children are experiencing in that time, that overstimulus of lot of pictures. So even the overstimulus in any kind in environment in any way is not really healthy for children. Yeah.
Thank you so much for all these inputs, Dr. Karti and Reena. I'll just take the final word from both of you. In the meantime, if anyone in the audience is up to a question, please feel free to ask through comments, and I'll take it up with them as we close. I know we are a little over time, but I trust that this information is as insightful for the audience as it is for me. So, Dr. Karti, also this is an audience question, and from my side as well, top 3 do's and don'ts for parents. I know you covered many a few things, but if you were to like summarize something, or just reinstate 3
Yeah.
must do's and don'ts.
The must for the 7 years, I'm talking about, we are only talking about the first 7 years, which is the foundation for the child. So I would say that the environment, as who we are, part of the environment, should be worthy enough, because we are an extended sheets for the children. Placental sheets were there in the mother's womb. When they're out, this becomes a sheet. Environment becomes a sheet. So that sensitive we need to be to, and it should be worthy an environment for imitation. That's so. Whatever you want the child to get benefited, you should first practice as a caregiver, and then to make sure that, so you're not saying something to the other and you're not doing following that. So that has to be a part. So eating time, sleeping time, there is no escape. You have to make sure the child eats by particularly the dinner meal. Why I'm insistent so that the sleep gets good quality. So by 6 o'clock dinner, by before 8 going to bed will be a very important must. And media definitely till 7 is not a good idea for children to be exposed to, but there is a time the child need to come into the media, that may be around 10 years we can bring. Then what should be shown, what should not be, then also the supervision need to be done. So till 7 years we don't speak about the indoor activities, we speak more about an outdoor activity on the weekends. And day to day you can bring the child into kitchen, family involvement activities and things like that. So it will be better to weave the child. Oh my God, vaccination on children is a big topic and it's a
Yes,
big
I
controversy.
understand. That may not be the scope of this webinar, but we can leave
Yeah,
a note to later after the webinar if you can share offline
we
something.
can see
This
always.
will
This is
merit a separate discussion. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, and it's a very controversial topic to in an open forum. It becomes
Very
more
complex one.
individualized.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I would leave it to what essential the child should get is a good sleep, good rhythm, and a good environment, a beautiful environment, a simple environment to grow with. If these can be provided for the children in the early years, then I think we are achieved to make a very good citizen in the future, a good society. And these children will be sparks in the society, which is we are dreading to see in the future. They will wake up as a spark. They will wake up the others, and it will be beauty to our future generation. So that's my point to say.
thank you, Dr. Garte. Everything you said was extremely powerful. Reena ma'am, since this phase is also about looking for the right school for the child, and also we start preschool early sometimes, and I know this from personal experience because the mother has to join back work. Or because it's simply a luxury these days to have the child at home until 7 years, even though that might be ideal. So, what is the kind of preschool that a parent should look for, knowing that these nurturing essentials are met?
Yeah, so my advice to parents, those who are looking for a preschool, that look for an environment which is preschool, which provides simple environment. Two, there's a lot of outdoor free play place where children can move, and if there are trees around, there's nature around, and I think nature is the best healer, which we really need to understand. If the school is able to provide that to children, I think that children's senses and the physical, emotional, or even the intelligent, or we always say that holistic development will be we will be able to give to the child if there's a beautiful nature around to the around child. And also most important for the parents, that as Dr. Karti said, that children learn through imitation. So thus school is providing trainings to the teachers, and if the because teachers are the next, I always call them second mother for children in the preschool years. So if teachers are trained and teachers are able to take care of young children, and Dr. Steiner actually said that teachers are like healers. If we healers can take care of ourselves and care, so they are able to take care of they are able to heal the next generation. They are able to prepare them for the next generation. Also, I would like to take this opportunity and would like to share that I feel very happy that now even in our new education policy, which is going to be implemented very soon, so even in that, the first 5 years, which are called PP1, that is preparation for their academics, and that is even the government or a new education policy is emphasizing that young children should given lot of time to explore themselves into the nature. and these formative years where they can, if the more they can explore, the more they can move around and be in the nature, that the more they will be ready for academics, for learning. So this preparation time is most important. So whenever you go to any preschool, look for these things, where whether this school environment will allow my children to or is whether this environment is giving enough room for my child to explore.
Yeah, I just
Sorry.
wanted to say that a lot of questions are flashing through, but I just wanted to say you can share my email ID with those who want to ask questions, or you can compile the questions and send it to me to the mail, and I can reply happily. Right now it's so time constrained, so sorry that we couldn't
Yes.
take up the questions.
Yes. I understand that, and some of them may need slightly more deliberation and personalized responses. So I have requested for the questions to be sent to me via WhatsApp text. I will direct them to any of you as may be appropriate. Thank you so much for all your inputs. And this is a phase where the questions are never ending, and so are the answers. But it set definitely a good foundation to uh, any parent who's beginning their journey or are somewhere in the journey from 0 to 7 years. And hopefully, this was very, very helpful for everyone. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Karti, and your wisdom. And thank you, Reena ma'am, as
Thank you
ever,
so much.
for sharing all your lessons with us. So many of us parents at Shishya know that Reena ma'am is best and happiest seen only surrounded by young children. So this was a privileged opportunity to have us talk to us adults. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you, audience, for listening through the whole webinar on a Sunday morning. See you, everyone. Have a great day. Hopefully, you can have some outdoor play with your children today.
Thank you, Dr. Karti, and thank you, Rituparna.
Okay, we will end the
Thank
session.
you so much.